13th of April this year marked 106 years since the horrific Jallianwala Bagh massacre, where hundreds of unarmed Indians were murdered on orders of the British Army's acting Brigadier General Reginald Dyer. It's a horror that Indians will never be able to wipe out from their memory. But today, as there is a fresh push to seek real justice for Jallianwala, another name has also emerged in that fight, the name of Sankaran Nair, a congressman and the first Malayali president of the party who held the British accountable for Jallianwala Bagh, and whose story is now being memorialized in the upcoming film Kesari Chapter 2. Nair was today remembered by the Prime Minister himself, just a day after Baisakhi and the Jallianwala anniversary, where the Prime Minister asked, why is it that the country hasn't even heard of this national hero?
जलियांवाला हत्याकांड में शहीद हुए देशभक्तों और अंग्रेजों की क्रूरता के अलावा एक और पहलू है जिसे पूरी तरह अंधेरे में डाल दिया गया था। ये पहलू मानवता के साथ, देश के साथ खड़े होने के बुलंद जज्बे का है। इस जज्बे का नाम संकरन नायर था। आपने किसी ने नहीं सुना होगा, संकरन नायर का नाम नहीं सुना होगा। साथियों, ये सिर्फ मानवता के साथ खड़े होने का ही मामला भर नहीं है, ये एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत का भी बहुत उत्तम उदाहरण है। कैसे दूर सुदूर दक्षिण में केरल का एक व्यक्ति पंजाब में हुए हत्याकांड के लिए अंग्रेजी सत्ता से टकरा गया। यही स्पिरिट हमारी आजादी की लड़ाई की असली प्रेरणा है।
Yes, the Prime Minister is right when he says that hardly anyone has heard of Sankaran Nair. In fact, this is something acknowledged by some within the Congress as well. Congress MP and fellow Malayali, Shashi Tharoor, has said that he is thrilled to see Nair's story finally being brought to the big screen because he was a fearless patriot whose legacy deserves much greater recognition in modern Indian history. Tharoor also referenced an older tweet of his from July 2018 when he had inaugurated the Sankaran Nair Memorial Seminar in Thiruvananthapuram and lamented how the proud son of Kerala was unjustly relegated to the footnotes of modern Indian history. But why did this happen? And just how unjust is this relegation? To understand that, you have to first know what Nair's contribution to our country's history has been. Born in 1857 in the Palakkad district of the then Madras Presidency, Nair belonged to a prominent family and was actively involved in the freedom struggle. A lawyer by profession, he rose to become a member of the Viceroy's Executive Council in 1915, extremely prestigious post, especially for an Indian national during British rule. While in the Viceroy's Council, Nair advocated for rights of Indians, regularly pointing out the various defects in the policies of the British and suggesting reforms, most importantly to the Government of India Act of 1919. But finally, he decided to give it all up. To give it all up in protest of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. Nair's resignation came as a shock to the British government in India, and many say actually played a role in them finally revoking the martial law in Punjab. Nair then took it upon himself to expose the atrocities committed by the British regime, and in his 1921 book titled Gandhi and Anarchy, made a scathing critique of the British Empire, blaming Punjab's then governor Michael O'Dwyer for the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. This led to O'Dwyer filing a case of libel against him in London, with the judicial bench being packed by British judges and the case being fought on lopsided turf. The odds were always stacked against Nair, but he still fought the case, and even though he eventually lost it, he made sure that in the hearings the world would hear about the extent of British atrocities on Indians. And now we come to that main question. If a man has done so much for the freedom struggle, if he has always stood for India and Indians, why would he be so ruthlessly forgotten? Experts say that accounts left by Nair in his book Gandhi and Anarchy might actually help us understand the reasons. As suggested by the name itself, Nair linked Gandhi's methods to anarchy and criticized them quite bluntly in this book. He was against the methods used in the non-cooperation movement and said that non-cooperation, as advocated by Mr. Gandhi, may be a weapon to be used when constitutional methods have failed to achieve our purpose. He also said that non-violence and passive suffering will lead to bloodshed or be unfruitful. He also criticized the Congress for supporting the Khilafat movement, which he said would lead to bloodshed. And finally, he was trenchant in his criticism of his own party on the Mopla riots. The riots where Hindu landlords were murdered by Muslim peasants. This attack was called a peasant rebellion by most historians, by most political parties, but Nair differed. He saw it as nothing but religious fanaticism, and on this he wrote in his book, supporting religious fanaticism is not leadership, it is cowardice. It's been over a century and a half since the killing that took the lives of at least 400 Indians in Jallianwala Bagh, but it's apparent that the historical hurt has simply not subsided. Questions are now being asked of the British afresh. UK MP Bob Blackman has now renewed the calls for accountability, asking his government to formally apologise for the murder of innocents. Mind you, in 2019, UK Prime Minister Theresa May called the massacre a shameful scar on British history. However, she stopped short of a formal apology. Since then, the Labour Party has called for a full, clear and unequivocal apology, a demand that surfaces periodically. However, far from an apology, a recent video has left Indians enraged. A video where the granddaughter of General Dyer was seen smirking at the very suggestion of reparations, a smirk that has set tempers soaring within India.
General Dyer was a very honourable man and greatly liked by the Indian, who spoke 3 or 4 Indian languages, which very few people did.
Your great-uncle, Balwant?
Yes.
What was his experience?
He's a young man. He described himself as a bit of a hellraiser.
So he was a looter. Was he a looter?
He was certainly allowed that kind of behaviour. I would object quite strongly to the view that they were rioters.
No. I think history is history, and you've got to accept that.
A humanitarian, but just as anyone who has even an iota of empathy or an iota of humanity within yourself, it will anger you. I don't want to mince my words. I don't want to be diplomatic in my answer, and I certainly don't want to beat around the bush when I say how ridiculous was she to say that. And how dare she? She was calling those thousands of people looters. They were innocent people who conglomerated there, right there, on that was what was meant to be an auspicious day of Baisakhi, thinking something else was going to be the eventuality of the day, and look what happened. By admission, General Dyer has said that he only stopped shooting when the bullets ran out. And she went on in that interview to say that he loved India and all kinds of things, and how that he had the greatest compassion. What love can you have in your heart when your actions only spoke of hate? And the fact that she is living in a la-la land of her own and is in some delusion of her own, and I don't know her, I haven't met her, and I don't wish to meet her. But the fact that she even said those things just makes me so angry on a humanitarian level. खून खौलता है जब मैंने वो वीडियो देखा कि the fact that she had such disdain for one of the biggest genocides in the history.
Now, on the 13th of April 1919, families gathered very peacefully in the Jallianwala Bagh to enjoy the sun, enjoy a day out with their families. General Dyer, on behalf of the British Army, marched his troops in and ordered his troops to fire on those innocent people until they ran out of ammunition. At the end of that massacre, 1,500 people were dead and 1,200 injured. Eventually, General Dyer was disgraced for that stain on the British Empire. In 2019, the then Prime Minister, Theresa May, recognised this was a stain on British colonial rule in India. But could we have a statement in government time? The anniversary of this will be on the 13th of April this year, when we're in recess. So could we have a statement from the government admitting to what went wrong and formally giving an apology to the people of India?
Well, it is said that history is written by the victors, but sometimes, just sometimes, the vanquished also return to seek answers. The questions being asked today about Jallianwala Bagh and about C. Sankaran Nair remind us that the truth can be suppressed for a while, but it can never be snuffed out.